you know, I've been in places like that too, where there's so much interpersonal tension among the participants and so many pathological things going on in the household that nothing simple can get done. You know, so like maybe the job of making a tuna sandwich takes like 2 hours because there's nothing but, first of all, nobody can find anything to make it with, and you know, the fridge is empty, and maybe the tuna cans are 6 years old, and the bread's all moldy and stale, and then even if that wasn't the case, they can't figure out who the hell's going to go shopping, and even if they could manage that, there'd be a big fight around, you know, what should be on the sandwich and how much tuna. And so, and the point of this little part of the story is that, you know, a simple task is only a simple task if there aren't all sorts of impediments around cluttering it up. You know, and if there are impediments like that cluttering it up, then you just can't get it done. And then you can see why that's so terribly stressful, because what it means in part is that there is no way that you can just do something straightforward with ease. Everything is about everything all the time. It's like, ugh, it's awful. It's awful. And it's very, very common. You know, you see couples all the time. This is a modern problem, you know. One of the advantages to traditional divisions of labor is that everybody knows what to do. Now you might say, well, that's not fair. It's like, yeah, okay, fine, it's not fair. That's probably true. The question is, what the hell is the alternative? And the alternative is, you have to negotiate every single task. So, you know, if you're going to cohabit with someone at some point in the future, here's your options: slavery, tyranny, or negotiation. So you can be the slave, you can be the tyrant, or you can negotiate. But the problem is, in the absence of routine and ritual and tradition, there's no rules. So everything has to be negotiated. And the problem with that is most people can't negotiate. They don't know how. You know, because the negotiation, it's a complex process, and people are very unlikely to engage in it. So when I'm trying to get people to make decisions, when they have to deal with something that's very complicated, the first thing I do is I say, okay, look, let's lay out the problem space, okay? All we're going to do is discuss what might be going on here. We're not going to jump to any conclusions about whether any of these theories are correct. We're just going to contemplate them. And right away there's resistance to that, because it's very difficult for people to separate a hypothesis about the way things are from a description of the way things are. So they get afraid that as soon as you discuss something in a certain way, that that's the way it's going to be. And so they can't even lay out the problem space. So that's the first impediment to negotiation. And then another impediment is they can't define what they want. You know, so like if you and I are going to negotiate about something, one of the things you need to know is what I could do that would satisfy you. And if the answer is, well, if you knew me better, you'd know what would satisfy me, which is a very common answer. It's like I'm hatched right from the beginning, because like I'm stupid. I don't know what will satisfy you. I don't even know what will satisfy me. You have to tell me, because I'm not very bright. It's like, what do you want? Well, I don't know. It's like, oh no, that's not good. It's like, now we have two problems. The problem and whatever would make you happy. It's like, it's terrible. And then you have to lay out the solution space. It's like, well, we could do it this way, or we could do it this way, or we could do it this way, or here's another option, or this is an option. And like, why don't you think those through? It's like, oh, that's a whole set of multiple realities. It's overwhelming. It's like, I'm not doing that. I'm tired of this discussion. I'm gone. So there's a dragon in everyone's house of that size now, because no one knows what to do. And no one knows how to solve the problem of what to do, because people don't know how to negotiate. They just aren't good at it. It's hard to negotiate, you know, because you have to suspend your judgment, and you have to have a symbolic war that doesn't erupt into a real war. And then you have to solve it, and then people have to agree to the solution, and then they have to enact the solution, right? They have to what? Act out their word once the solution has been negotiated. And it happens, but it's very difficult, so people avoid it all the time, and then everything becomes incredibly complicated. I went to a house once quite regularly where the husband refused to, he was kind of a traditionalist, you know, and he refused to ever thank his wife for doing anything that was domestically related, like cooking. Now, and she also had a career, and it was, you know, a pretty demanding career, so it wasn't self-evident that she should be the one that was doing this, but that doesn't matter, you know. she could cook, but she wouldn't. And so every time I went there, I had the most god-awful food. It was just staggeringly terrible. You know, everything had been done to that food to torture it, that an intelligent and irritated person could possibly do. And so the price that was being paid in that, and the kids wouldn't eat, and it's no goddamn wonder, you know, it's like, who would eat that? You know, and so the price the family was paying for not negotiating around this complex operation, because running a domestic economy is a very complex operation. The price they paid for it was every single meal was like curdled with resentment, and the food quality was terrible, and everyone was angry. It's like, oh my God, that's like, it's 4 hours a day of that, you know? That's like a quarter of your waking life. So, and you know, after engaging in that sort of interaction with your husband or your wife for like a quarter of the day for 10 years, you can be sure that whatever goodwill you might have stored up is pretty much evaporated. So, you know, one thing that you might think about, and this is counterintuitive, you know, because people think, what are the most important events in your life? And, you know, no one is going to say breakfast. You know, you think, well, I went to Europe for 2 weeks this summer or something like that. It's like, all that stuff's irrelevant. Who cares about that? Exceptions are irrelevant. Your life is made up of the things you do every day. That's what it's made up of. So, you know, I don't know how many thousands of hours you're going to spend having breakfast over the, you know, the course of your life, but it's going to be something like 1/16 of the time you have left. So let's say you've got 80 years left. That means you're going to have to spend 5 years having breakfast. It's like, get it right. You know, because I would say about half of your life is routine. And if you get the routines right, you know, so everybody sits down and the meal's real good and everybody's happy about it and all the little decisions have been distributed properly, it's like, poof, half your life is good. So, you know, and you won't get fat and have an eating disorder, which is also kind of a plus. Or you won't get as fat or have as much of an eating disorder.